Welcome back to The World Today with your host Dominique. Today's episode is the compelling story of love. And as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about love, which is something quite common that we are often afraid to talk about. To do this, we're going to take a closer look at All About Love, New Visions by Bell Hooks. Today we're going to be taking an even closer look at chapters 1 through 4, which are Clarity, Give Love Words, Justice, Childhood Love Lessons, Honesty, Be True to Love, and Commitment, Let Love Be in Me. The whole purpose of the first third of the book is to touch on things that we are often scared to talk about with a partner and to find the origin of where and when we learn to love. First, talking about Clarity, Give Love Words, and Justice, Childhood Love Lessons. I feel that both go hand in hand because they talk about the roots of where and when we are first introduced into the idea of love, because as Hook mentions, we are not really born with knowing what love is. Her answer is that we are taught how to love. However, each person is taught differently, and Hooks expresses how childhood experiences will forever decide on a person's overall turnout as an adult. First, as mentioned in Clarity, Give Love Words, we learn to have to define what love means to us because so many people never do and are often confused as to what love even means to them. Hooks uses a sort of bothered and angry tone toward the reader in these two chapters due to her frustration in that the world has never offered her a clear meaning to the bizarre word. Then she expresses her anger towards her family for confusing her in what this love they so often told her to show to others even was. She says, in early adolescence, when we were whipped and told that these punishments were for our own good or I'm doing this because I love you, my siblings and I were confused. Why was harsh punishment a gesture of love? As children do, we pretend to accept this grown-up logic, but even we knew in our hearts that it was not right. We knew it was a lie. Basically, Hook's tone of anger is crucial to the beginning of the book because it opens up that reader to that emotional connection that we look for when reading, and it kind of sends that urge for us to move on to the next chapters. Then moving on to the next few chapters, Honesty, Be True to Love, and Commitment, Let Love Be in Me. The use of quotes is what Hooks kind of guides herself on, and it's powerful in her writing because it reinforces Hook's original claim that love is crucial to living a fulfilling life. The quotes she includes are able to provide a more memorable and concise phrasing for her ideas that leave the reader fulfilled knowing that they got accurate information that they should practice in their own lives. In Honesty, Be True to Love, Hooks writes about the tendency of men feeling superior to women because they can lie about anything they'd like to. How this habit is often passed down by generations must be changed starting right now. Through the use of quotes by researchers on the matter, Hooks emphasizes the claim. She writes, in his important work, Rediscovering Masculinity, Victor Sandler stresses, when we learn to use language as boys, we very quickly learn how to conceal ourselves through language. We learn to master language so that we can control the world around us. Even though we learn to blame others for our unhappiness and misery in relationships, we also know that some unspoken level how our masculinity has been limited and injured as we touched the hurt and pain of realizing how little we seem to feel about anything. Furthermore, the chapter Commitment, Let Love Be Love in Me is about how we must stay true in relationships and choose to be there for our partners no matter what may be going on in our lives. Only then can we expect the same from them. As an author, I imagine it's quite hard to ask the reader to actually practice something in their lives. However, Hooks provides real life experience of other people through the use of quotes that persuades us to commit to relationships ourselves. She says, my sister, who was then working as a therapist in the field of chemical dependency, encouraged me to give affirmations to try to see if I would experience any concrete changes in my outlook. I wrote affirmations relevant to my daily life and began to repeat them in the morning as part of daily meditations. At the top of my list was a declaration, I'm breaking with old patterns and moving forward with my life. I not only found them to be a tremendous energy boost, a way to kick off the day by my accentuating the positive, I also found it useful to repeat them during the day, even if I felt particularly stressed or was falling into the abyss of negative thinking. Affirmations helped restore my emotional equilibrium. I think the whole book overall is a great read for anyone seeking to learn about love, which is, I can only assume, everyone out there. We all have our questions about it. Chapter 1 kind of made me realize that in order for me to even begin to love other people, I have to make sure that I and myself have a clear definition of it. Hooks defines it in her books as several things like commitment, honesty, and communication. But she says that anyone can find their own definition of love and stick to it. In chapter 2, Justice Childhood Love Lessons, I kind of learned where my family's problems come from, why people kind of like look back to their past in order to defend themselves from issues they may have now. Not using it as excuse, but I guess just as kind of like, don't hurt me because I've been through this. But in chapter 2, I learned that you just have to simply move on. As straightforward as it sounds, we tend to always bring up the past in relationships, and Hooks just makes it very clear that we have to stop doing that as a society, because that's going to get us absolutely nowhere. The past is the past, and we can have open communications about it with the people who harmed us, or not, but eventually we have to learn to create new memories and leave those old ones behind. In Honesty, Be True to Love, I found this chapter really interesting because I tend to be someone who has those white lies, someone who keeps my feelings to myself. But Hooks just made me realize that everything has to be out in the open for not just like relationships with one person to work, but for family to work. Everyone needs to be honest with each other, how they feel about certain things, and not to keep things locked in, because it can eventually come back out as more negatively than it would have been originally if you just stated it in the first place, which I know that everyone must go through. Families, we tend to keep stuff in, and then when things get really bad, we just kind of blow everything off on each other. But in honesty, with being honest, everything gets out in the open as soon as it happens, and that can prevent a lot of future problems from happening. Finally, in chapter 4, Commitment, Let Love Be in Me, I guess I got a real understanding of what commitment is, because we often think of commitment as just kind of being there for someone, but it's so much more than that. It's not just being there for someone, like physically there in the place at the time, but emotionally and mentally. If someone is down, you're down with them. You bring them back up, because you would only expect the same thing from someone else, but you can't expect the same thing from someone else if you're not giving it yourself. We have to learn that sometimes people will be mad at us, and that in commitment you learn to stick through the hard, and like referring back to childhood love lessons, moving on from it, because only then, not just ourselves, but as a community and as a society, we can become more loving. People tend to be always stressed out, especially now during COVID era, and love can solve that, but it has to be out in the open, it has to be honest, and it has to be clear. I don't know, I think it's great that someone like Hooks is brave enough to kind of hit society with that, learn about love, embrace it, because we often shut it down and don't talk about it. My next episode will be on the next 4 chapters of the book, but to close this one off, I want to include the first quote that she gives us at the very beginning of her book. At the beginning of chapter 1, it says, this quote is by Diane Ackerman. As a society, we are embarrassed by love. We treat it as if it were an obscenity. We reluctantly admit to it. Even saying the word makes us stumble and blush. Love is the most important thing in our lives, a passion for which we would fight or die, and yet we're reluctant to linger over its names. Without a supple vocabulary, we can't even talk or think about it directly. It's an amazing quote that just reinforces again Hooks' original claim that we have to embrace love as a society and learn to give it a definition. I think everyone should think about what love means to them, what they're even searching for, and why they're searching for it. That closes off today's episode. Hopefully I see you all back in episode 2. Thank you.